Five, four, three, two, one. You ready? Okay, I wanted to go over here to the Divine Calendar put together by those friendly neighborhood Bible students over at the Concordant Publishing Concern. I wanted to look at two items here. See if I can expand this. I wanted to look at the 5 eons and the 12 administrations. And regarding the 5 eons, okay? So we have, let's see if I can, oops. Got to figure out how to use this. Oh, I know, maybe I can move it down. Yeah, okay. So we have the 5 eons going across time. We're in the present wicked eon, and there's 2 in the past and 2 in the future. Okay, so what I wanted to say is if you are a student of movies and storytelling and novels, you will see that it's very common for a good story to have 5 acts in the play. 5 acts in the play. And generally speaking, no matter what story you're talking about, whether it's The Wizard of Oz or The Chronicles of Narnia, the 5 acts go like this. The first eon is the first act of the play. The characters are generally introduced. You get to know the characters, generally speaking. The second act is, oh my God, there's a disaster. Okay? And what we have here, in between the first eon of time and the second eon of time, according to these chart makers, is that we have this great disruption that happens. We don't know much about the disruption, except that in Genesis 1:1, it seems to be that everything's going along fine. God created the heavens and the earth. And then verse 2 says, oh my God, the earth was desolate and void. What happened between Genesis 1? Well, there was some type of great catastrophe. So in Act 1, or Scene 1, you're introduced to the characters. Then by Scene 2, there's a great disaster that happens, and the disaster has to be solved. And so you go through the big Act number 3, they're trying to solve it. And get this, if you're a student of movie making and storytelling, you'll see it's very common that in the 4th act of the play, it's always the false happy ending. It looks like it's going to be a happy ending, but it ends in big fat disaster. Remember when Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, in this 4th act, she gets into the balloon and she's ready to go back to Kansas. That looks like it's going to be a happy ending, but then, oh my God, one more disaster happens, and Toto the dog jumps out and she has to miss her ride back to Kansas. And so the adventure kind of begins again. And so we had this in this 4th eon of time, which is the 1,000-year reign of Christ. It also ends in disaster. If you look at the book of Revelation, you see that this 1,000-year reign of Christ is promised at the end of the 1,000 years. It seems the whole world gathers up against Christ all over again. So even the 4th eon is like a 4th act of a play. It too, the 1,000-year reign of Christ ends in disaster. You would think that, oh my God, what's going on? So there's still more to go. So we have to go through this 5th eon of time. And that is the satisfying end. Do you remember that Michael Douglas movie where he has this affair with some woman? I forgot the name of the movie. Fatal Attractions, that's it. And when they get to the 4th act, he kills this woman that he's having an affair with because she's a freaking nut job and she's got murder in her heart. So he actually kills her. He drowns her in the bathtub. And then he turns his back on her, and she comes out of the bathtub. So that's the same thing here with the 4th act of the play. Looks like it's going to be the end, the happy ending, but then it turns out to be a false ending. So you can look for that in the movies you watch, the stories you read. You'll see that a good movie has this very satisfying false ending, which is the fourth act of the play, and then it finally gets to the satisfying ending, which in the scriptures is called the Eon of the Eons. All right, so now let's see if I can hop over here and look at these the administrations in the chart. So there's 5 eons of time, but the chart makers here have pointed out that there are 12 administrations of God. And it turns out that as I understand the whole program of God and God's Eonian purpose, God gives us no excuse. In other words, I know quite a few people who think that they can do a better job than God. And if God had just asked them, he would have coached them in the right kind of way, because they would have long ago ended evil and child rape and disasters of all sorts. They can't put up with that. They know better than God, So they're like the clay telling the potter, "Hey, what are you doing here? Who are you that you made me like this?" Anyway, but so when we look at the 12 administrations, we see that they all end in disaster. And as I understand it, it's God giving humanity 12 different ways to prove that he can't do it without him. That man can't really function without God. So we have the administration of innocence with Adam, and that ends in disaster. Then we have an administration of conscience, and conscience gets ruined with the story of Cain and Abel. And then we have an administration where God gives human government. Does that solve the problem? No. It ends with Noah's flood, the Tower of Babel. Oh, and then we have an administration where God gives a promise. Can mankind get it together under a promise? This is administration number 4. No. And so God gives the law of Moses, and does that work out? Nah, it doesn't work out. And then God gives Jesus incarnate in the flesh. What do? Off with his head. So then we move into a 7th administration where God deals with humanity in an administration we call the Pentecostal administration, where there's Peter and the signs and miracles. But that ends in disaster, and then Paul comes along in transition administration, where he moves from priest and offers mercy to Israel, and they reject Paul's message. Those Jews reject Paul's message. So God moves into the secret administration, which he kept secret the whole time. It was like, this is perfect plan. And finally he reveals it through Paul that it's all about grace. And what is grace? You can't even earn it, baby. God favors you, and you will never earn it. So let's get it together. It's all God. It's nothing of you. Anyway, so this is a secret administration, and Paul was presented it when he was a prisoner. It's the present economy during which God, pre-Eonian purpose, his pre-Eonian purpose is carried out. And then the reference looks like it's Titus 1:2. Okay, so God will close up this administration of grace because it really fulfills everything. He'll close it up at his perfect time, and he'll bring in the administration of judgment with the book of Revelation and the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets and the 7 bowls of judgment. He'll move it into the 1,000-year reign of Christ. And even that one ends in failure. And finally, we have the 12th administration, which is the fullness of the Son of God. And that one is the only one that ends in success because it's not dependent on mankind at all. That's when finally God becomes all in all. Okay. So my point, generally speaking, is I just wanted to point out to you that in storytelling, and God is creating a great story here, there are 5 acts to the play. We're now in the 3rd act, and it looks pretty bad. Oh my God, there's a lot of drama going on, and you need drama in a good story. And this 3rd act will lead us to the 4th act, which looks like it's going to solve all the problems, but it also ends in disaster because it, somehow magically the storytellers, script writers, movie makers, they got their cue of storytelling from God himself, who knows the power of a good story. You introduce the problem, the almost solution, the characters who are going to present the almost solution, and then finally it's the fake solution, and then finally it's the real solution. Anyway, so we eventually get to the point where the story closes and God is all in all. Okay? This is a fun little chart, and I thought you might enjoy my thoughts about the matter. The 5 eons of time and the 12 administrations of God, in which most of them looked like a disaster. They look promising, but we can't do it on our own. God gives us government, we screw it up. Innocence, we screw it up. The promise from Abraham, we screw it up. Law, incarnation, the Pentecostal powers, we screw it up. Nothing works except grace. Notice the blue color here? Blue in the secret administration, and the blue color here in the fullness of the Son of God. Anyway, so those kind of, as a chart maker, they made them parallel because looking at the scriptures, they do parallel. The secret administration of grace parallels perfectly with the final eon of time, with the New Jerusalem, new heaven and new earth. That one works, but nothing else does. Anyway, thanks for letting me bend your ear. Grace